Oh my, the manager bloodbath is continuing.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. But the best way to get hold of me is right here on the YouTube channel. And today's episode is being brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And if you're betting on the NBA, I bet you've lost because nothing makes sense in the NBA finals, playoffs anymore. But this is not an NBA show. This is the MLB show. Hey, let's talk about the trivia question before we get going here. I asked because we talked about the Rockies, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the Rockies today as well. Who knew? I said, who has thrown the most innings as a member of the Colorado Rockies in their career? Cameron Coy, 2874, said Pedro Estacio. Very good guess. He had a nice long career there. But nope, it was Big John 08865 said Aaron Cook. Aaron Cook, who had a nice career, especially when you consider he was cursed to pitch all those seasons in Colorado. But he spent all but one season with the Rockies. He pitched one season in Boston, which was the dreadful Bobby Valentine year. But he was a mainstay for the Rockies for many years, started a game in the World Series for them, also started in the playoffs when they went to the playoffs in 2009. That was a good team they had in 2009. And he made an all-star team for his troubles. So that is the answer to that question. And before we get going here about the big news out of Colorado, we're going to talk about who owned baseball for May 11th, 2025. Let's see. Renel Blanco pitched a terrific game, 8 innings, a 2-hit ball, struck out 11, helped the Astros shut out the Reds 6-0. The Astros are creeping their way back up the standings. Watch them win the division again. Brooks Lee, the Twins are suddenly red hot. They've won more than a week of games. They swept the Giants. He got 3 hits with a home run. The Twins came from behind to top San Francisco 7-6. Zach Wheeler pitched a great game on Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. Struck out 8 over 7 innings, and the Phillies blanked Cleveland 3-0. And Hunter Goodman, I almost gave it to Kyle Schwarber, but Hunter Goodman went 3 for 5 with a home run, 5 runs batted in, and the Rockies had a rare win, 9-3 over the Padres. Half wobs. Ramos of the Giants homered, singled, walked, but the Giants lost. Sadly, Luis Ortiz pitched very well for Cleveland, 6 innings, 1 run, but took a hard luck 3-0 loss. Matthew Boyd pitched well for the Cubs. He struck out 8 Mets over 6 innings, but the Cubs lost 6-2. Jonathan Aranda got 3 hits, but the Rays were doubled up by the Milwaukee Brewers. Well, just a few shows ago, I did a thing on the managers who probably should be let go. And again, I cannot stress this enough. I am not a man who I don't relish taking away people's jobs. I don't jump up and down when someone gets fired. But at the same time, if someone's not doing their job and a team can do better in a different direction, sometimes you got to make a change. And Bud Black was one of the names that I had mentioned. I had mentioned also, in the episode I talked about Derek Shelton and the Pirates and Bud Black and the Rockies and saying that, look, they're off to horrible starts. And if these are not the people who are going to right the ship, and they both have been there a while, Bud Black, this is his 9th season with the Rocks, and it was Shelton's 6th. And I take a good long look at Brandon Hyde. And Brandon Hyde, this is his 7th year as the manager of the Orioles. And they're not playing, the Orioles are not playing up to their potential right now. But I brought up all those those potential managerial firings, and Shelton immediately gone, stonk, bye. And then today came the announcement after the 21-0 loss was kind of the last straw for the Colorado Rockies. I mean, the Rockies have just been playing at a historically horrible clip. But they didn't even wait, because I would understand at the end of today, the Rocks are about to go on a trip. They're going to play tomorrow in Texas. And, maybe especially because someone like Bud Black, who has been there a while, I mean, he's a man who has been the manager of the year. He's had success. Hell, he's had success as the Rockies manager. He's led the Rockies to a division series. He did back-to-back playoff appearances, but he lost 33 out of the first 39 games. And this is coming off a back-to-back 100-loss seasons, coming off a 94-loss season. They were a 91-win team in 2018, and were one win away from winning their only division title in the history of the franchise. And since then, it has been a nosedive, and now they look like a team that could very well challenge the Chicago White Sox of last year as the worst team in the history of baseball, at least in terms of win-loss percentage. And I can't say that I'm against this move. You can't come out of the gate worse. And the way that they've been losing, the way that they've just been, like the last bunch of games, they've just been having the doors blown off, and they just don't even look like a major league team. And I've had people post on the YouTube page asking, do you think the Rockies could beat a AAA team right now? And I honestly don't know the answer to that. So you look at the team and you think, okay, this team is obviously not going to be a terrific team this year. There's not a lot of talent on the squad. But if you're going to turn the page, turn it. If you're going to say, hey, look, this is not working, then turn it now. Why would you wait for, if you're going to make a change, make it pretty dang soon. And they did. The Pirates did, because the Pirates have a chance. Yes, the Cubs are a good team. Yes, the Cubs have started the season really well and had a great gauntlet that they've gone through and come out the other side. But the Pirates have talent on their squad, and they could potentially put together a good second half. And they won today. The Pirates won today on a walk-off victory against the Atlanta Braves. The Rockies aren't going to do piddly-poo this year. We all know that. They're probably going to lose 100 games. Hell, they're basically a third of the way there now. They're almost a third of the way there now. But they beat San Diego today. First game out, new manager, and they pulled the ripcord. And as I said yesterday, I give tons of credit to the fans in Colorado, because 34,000 people were there today. The day after they had the doors blown off the dump of a 21-0 loss, you're telling me that 34,000 people showed up in Colorado? That is why they had to make this change. That is why this was mission critical. And I'll tell you something. I've not given the Rockies a whole hell of a lot of thought, but look in these last couple of days. If I was Dick Monfort, the CEO of the Rockies, I would say we got to go all in, because we have amazing fans. And this is a fan base that deserves a division title, that deserves a World Series championship. And you can do it. You can flip things around. The Arizona Diamondbacks were a 110-loss team in 20 and 21, and they were in the World Series in 2023. It's possible. Is it likely? Of course not. But step one, do not accept this. And I give them credit for not accepting it. Now, when we come back, I want to talk about the fact of who is coming in, who is waiting in the wings, and why I wonder if Bud Black may not be someone who will be unemployed for very long. Hey, the NBA playoffs are in full swing and they make absolutely no sense. Are we going to see the Warriors versus the Pacers in the NBA Finals? What the hey is going on here? Now, tomorrow you're going to see if the Celtics can right the ship because it doesn't look like the Cavaliers are doing anything like that. There's so many momentum shifts and can't miss moments, whether it's a game winning shot or the Cavaliers not realizing that today's game counted. The best way to get on the action is through FanDuel. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to win smart and win big. Which players are going to show up and have the biggest moments? Will Jaylen Brown show up tomorrow? I don't know, and neither do you. And how could tracking their trends help you build your next bet? Well, let me tell you something. $200 in bets will add excitement if your first $5 bet hits. And you can combine live prop bets mid-game based on how the action unfolds. Now, if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the National Basketball Association. You know, Bud Black didn't have a very good year this year as a manager. I can prove that. He lost 33 out of 39 games. And it's been a rough few years for him. And Bud Black is not a spring chicken. The San Mateo native is 67. He was going to be 68 in just a few days. And he's had success in his career. He was a former manager of the year in 2010. He saw, ironically, in 2007, he managed the Padres team that collapsed down the stretch and allowed the Rockies to win the wild card and ultimately the pennant. And then he took the Padres to a 90-win season, barely missing the division in 2010. And then had some rough years, and then was let go by San Diego in 2015. In 2017, he reemerged with the Rockies, and they had success right away. They went to the playoffs his first year in Colorado. They went to the division series his second year, and things fell off a cliff after that. He's been a manager for 18 years. He's a veteran manager with experience and some success and some failure. And I can't help but wonder if you're a team that needs a new manager, you could do a lot worse than Bud Black. Yes, it seems weird to say the guy got fired for taking a team that lost its 30th game before they won their 7th. Okay, this is grotesque, and it's the back-to-back 100-loss seasons. But he is a veteran manager. It wasn't as if he was handed the 1995 Braves to manage. This was a Rockies team that was sorely lacking. Yes, they got absolutely clobbered his last bunch of games as manager, but he's a veteran manager with experience who's been there and also done that. Do you know who could use a manager like that? Toronto. Now, I think there are other people who could do the good job in Toronto. As I said, I'm not a huge fan of Don Mattingly as a manager, but he is on their payroll. I still don't understand why Joe Madden is persona non grata and why he can't get a new manager job. But I do think if a team needs an experienced veteran manager, you could actually do worse than Bud Black. If you give him a quality team, they may do well under his leadership. And I'm taking a good, now, I got to give credit where credit is due. I would have put Rocco Baldelli and the Minnesota Twins in that category just a few weeks ago. But now they've won a week's worth of games, and they've rattled off they have a great winning streak they've been going on, capped off by a sweep of the San Francisco Giants. I would have said Oliver Marmol, who has done nothing of note as a manager of the St. Louis Cardinals after the 2022 season, and one of the great organizations have now been, turned into also-rans, but they're also on a big winning. They've also been on a nice winning streak recently. And did they win today? Yeah, they beat Washington. So two of the hottest teams, the Twins, who are now on a 8-game winning streak, as are the St. Louis Cardinals. The Cardinals went from middling about to now they're only 1 game out of first. Another reason to point out why a team like the Pirates needs to get their act together. But Toronto was another team. Now, Toronto just wound up sweeping the Seattle Mariners. So is Toronto getting their ship righted? They've climbed back to 500 themselves. There is a veteran manager out there. I'm not saying that he is the end-all be-all, but for certain teams who could use a veteran leader who's been there and done that, I don't see why that's the worst thing in the world. Now, I misread the story about Bud Black. I thought they replaced him with Mike Redmond, who was his bench coach. And Mike Redmond is a former manager for the Marlins. I thought, well, that makes sense. But alas, that's not what happened. Warren Schaeffer, who's the third base coach, is now the interim manager. And the hitting coach, Clint Hurdle, is going to be the bench coach. And I find that to be a little, I don't know. There's something about that caught me off guard. Do you know why? Clint Hurdle is going to be the lieutenant to Warren Schaeffer. Clint Hurdle was the manager of the Rockies when they went to the World Series in 2007. And he also is the only manager since Jim Leland to manage the Pirates to a postseason appearance. So I would have thought they would hand him back the car keys. But who knows? Warren Schaeffer may be a really solid manager. I don't know a thing about Warren Schaeffer. I'm not going to lie to you. This could be a situation, and I have been wrong about some things. I'll tell you exactly who. By the way, I'll tell you one thing that makes me really, really mad is that Warren Schaeffer is 40 years old. I'm about to turn 53. He's 13 years younger than me, and he's a major league manager. And I'm feeling very, very old. But who knows? He could be the next John McGraw. I was dead wrong about Snitker with the Braves. When he became the Braves manager, I rolled my eyes initially. And I thought, what the heck is this guy? And he's turned into one of our finest managers in baseball. So who knows? Maybe they got a great young manager, and there you go. Now, I'm going to go on a quick break here, but when we come back, I want to show you something that happened. I did a crossover episode with Millard Thomas of Locked On Arizona Diamondbacks. And we did discussion about the Diamondbacks year and the NL West. And while we were doing the show, Millard was trying to get me to respond to the fact that Bud Black was fired. Here's the deal. I didn't know that Bud Black was fired. So in this segment, the final segment, you will see me talking about the NL West. And as the show is wrapping up, I find out, wait, what? Bud Black got fired? You get to see me react in real time. All right, let's take a look at that part where Millard and I were talking about the NL West, and I discovered while recording that Bud Black got fired. This was from a Locked On Diamondbacks episode that we crossed over on. San Diego Padres, as we're recording this, are 25-14. They lost to the Rocks, but they played well against the Rocks. They just lost one game. They have a .641 winning percentage right now, which would be in first place in every other division in baseball, including the National League East. And it gives you a second place finish in the National League West. Los Angeles is on top. San Francisco, even with their 3-game sweep by the Minnesota Twins over the weekend, have a better winning percentage than the Cubs, than the Mariners, and the New York Yankees. And the D-backs are above 500.
Barely.
And are just a few bullpen collapses away from being right in there as well, and are certainly in the wild card.
Yeah, they could be like leading this division on some of those bullpen games that we've seen in the last few weeks.
Obviously you have the Dodgers and Padres are the two-headed monster at the top of this division, but the Giants are the interlopers. The Giants are the surprise guests at this dinner party. How much of a fluke do you think the Giants are in terms of we are about a quarter of the way through the season? We'll be at the 1/3 mark in just a couple of weeks, which is when you can really start looking at the standings. Is this just a good month and a half for the Giants, or is this a team that could really be a wild card contender for this season.
No, I think they're a real contender. The Giants, when we did the NL West roundtable, I was in on the Giants over. I thought this was going to be a frisky, dark horse wild card team that we had to watch out for. I didn't think they were going to win the division, but I thought they were going to be a legitimate team to watch out for that third wild card spot. They added Willie Adames, which was a legit power bat shortstop to the middle of that lineup. I honestly thought they had one of these stronger rotations on paper if everything worked out, because you had a guy like Robbie Ray coming back, who's won a former Cy Young. Logan Webb is like flirting with the Cy Young the last few years. Wasn't that big on Justin Verlander, but Jordan Hicks I didn't mind, Kyle Harrison, and now you're actually getting contributions from guys like Jung Ho Lee, who we forgot was just a major bust last season, but signed to a big contract coming from overseas. And so they're finally getting some offensive contributions from the Jung Ho Lees, from the Willie Adameses, guys like even Mike Yastrzemski are starting to.
Oh, Yaz. I love Yaz.
Yeah, Yaz is finally, he's back to having that power. So I like this Giants team. Do I think they could win the World Series? No. But do I think they're a team to watch out for? And then maybe we get to the deadline and they get a little bit more frisky. Maybe they add a big splash from one of those pending free agents coming up this offseason. I would take the Giants seriously as a team, as a playoff contender, as a wild card contender, and then we'll see if they add anybody once the deadline rolls around.
You make a great point in both Robbie Ray and with Jung Hoo Lee that sometimes you can't, especially when you have someone signed to a multi-year deal, you can't always judge it based on their first impression. Lee was a flop last year, and Ray was a complete non-factor. Yeah. Well, right now Ray is pitching like he is an all-star, and Lee is the catalyst of this of the lineup right now. By the way, Matt Cain was a pitcher for the Giants when they won the 3 World Series. He actually was hurt in the 2014 World Series, but he was actually the ace of the 2012 championship and was a really good pitcher on the 2010 team. And Giant fans will remember he basically had to pitch a perfect game to get a win because he lost so many 2-1, 1-0 games. And Matt Cain got the worst run support you ever saw, even when they were winning. And boy, oh boy, is Logan Webb Matt Cain 2.0 right now. This is why you don't look at win-loss records. His win-loss record is 4-3. His ERA is 2.60. He is leading the league in innings pitched. He has 65 strikeouts in 55 1/3 innings and only 14 walks. He's only let up 2 home runs the entire season. I mean, he is an all-star. He's a legitimate all-star this year. And of course, his final record will probably be 10-11. And people will just look at the win-loss record, will say he was mediocre. I say we got to the point where we just need to eliminate the win-loss record when we list the starting pitchers and just have what their average start is. That tells you more. What is an average Logan Webb start? He's 9 starts. He throws 55 innings. So he's going to be throwing. He's going to be going pretty deep into a game. He's going to be. He's going to be close to. He's giving you close to 6 innings a start, and I think it's terrific. I mean, you're seeing their bullpen. They're figuring out what their bullpen is. Walker's been up and down, and Doval had an up and down season last year, but he's finding his role. And I think that while I like to say things like, the manager should just use the relievers in the best situation, I talked about this show yesterday. These are human beings, and sometimes you like to know what your role is. Sometimes you like to go and define what your roles are. Even now, it doesn't necessarily mean the tyranny of what I call the tyranny of the save, which is you only use your best relievers in a save situation, and you pull what Buck Showalter did in that where they had he had God, why am I not remembering his name? He was Britton. He didn't use Britton in the wild card game, and then they let in poor Ubaldo Jimenez to let up the walk-off homer. You don't do that madness, but you do a little bit like what Francona did when he was managing both the Red Sox and Cleveland, where he would mix and match where he used his best relievers. But everyone had their defined roles, and I think they have their defined roles in San Francisco. And like you said, they could probably use some of that in Arizona right now.
Yeah, we need to get it because, you look at the Giants bullpen, and outside of Ryan Walker, it's a lot of sub-2 ERA guys. Rogers, Doval, Randy Rodriguez.
Shelby Miller.
Shelby Miller's been very good for the D-backs this season. He had one chance to be the closer. He blew the save, and then he hasn't been given another save opportunity since. Kevin Ginkel is coming off the injured list, throwing 6 out of 10 games, going against game 2 against the Dodgers, and of course has to face 6 batters, gets lit up. It's like, let's have a little bit more consistency with the bullpen. I would like to see Shelby Miller back as the closer. I love Kevin Ginkel, but whenever we tried to make Kevin Ginkel the closer, it is just not his job. It is not his role. It's never worked out. Put Ginkel as the 8th inning guy. Give me Shelby as the 9th inning guy, and then go with Ryan Thompson, Jalen Binks as your 2 7th inning guys. With the way it's set up, we should have potentially Kendall Graveman back in the next few days, in the next week. He's with the Reno Aces. He didn't really pitch that much last season, but before the prior few years, Kendall Graveman was a very good back-end high-leverage reliever. So hopefully he can help out a little bit. Apparently, Justin Martinez, he looks good doing his looks good during his throwing program. Torey Lovello says the ball is sizzling out of his hands right now. So could get some help back this week for the D-backs bullpen.
Well, let's also talk about one other thing here.
Mm-hmm.
You have the two-headed monster at the top between Los Angeles and San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Kolek threw a complete game shutout in Coors Field of all places in the 21-0 game where the Chargers beat the Broncos. The Chargers aren't in San Diego anymore. I don't follow football. Sorry.
Close.
But if Kolek is a solid starting pitcher, they have a rotation of Michael King, who is having an all-star caliber season, Nick Pivetta, who lost today but has been terrific, Dylan Cease, who's had some good games, some bad games. We all know he's a talented pitcher. Kolek has pitched well. Randy Vasquez has pitched well. Their bullpen is absolutely untouchable.
Yep. Suarez nasty.
Suarez, you can't hit Suarez. Estrada, Adam, Matsui. This is a terrific bullpen they have. Quite frankly, I like San Diego's pitching more than I like Los Angeles's pitching. Yamamoto is very good, but he doesn't go deep into games. Glasnow, when they sign him, is in a full body cast. So Roki Sasaki has been okay, but not great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to think, unless Los Angeles acquires another starting pitcher in the long haul, I think San Diego might be better.
Well, they still have one more guy, Sully. Still got Blake Snell out there who's injured, so they could add another potential multi-Cy Young award winner to this rotation at some point.
But which Blake Snell is coming back?
That's a great question. We've seen him win a Cy Young in multiple leagues. So if you get one of those guys, he's a very yo-yo player throughout his career. But again, healthy Dodgers, it's been a little up and down right now. But if you still get to September, October, and all your options are Yamamoto, May, Sasaki, Glasnow, Gonsolin, Blake Snell, like you're still going to have 7 all-stars to choose from if you're the LA Dodgers.
But we saw that last year, and last year they were throwing 2 bullpen games a series. That's asking a lot. And I think, look at LA's lineup, you stack up with anybody, but it's not like San Diego's lineup is a slouch either. You could have a pair of 100-win teams in this division. And it's kind of reminding me what happened with San Francisco and Los Angeles in 2021.
Yeah, when looking at the Padres lineup, the biggest thing for them is probably the fact that Manny Machado looks like he's back to being Manny Machado because he had a little bit of a down year last year. And then the other thing is healthy. Tatis might not be the best player in that lineup right now. Healthy this season, Jackson Merrill offensively has looked like that best Padres player. So if you're in a lineup and all of a sudden Tatis is like your second best player, Machado's your third best player because Jackson Merrill has taken that big of a leap where he's really in the conversation with the big three, like, yeah, that Padres lineup is going to be able to compete with anybody if you get guys playing at that level.
And before we sign off, talk about the NL West on this. I talked about this yesterday, and we got to talk about it again today because yesterday the Padres scored 5 runs in the top of the inning, and this was coming after games where the Rockies pitching let up 13 runs the day before. I think it was just unbelievable, like constantly just letting up double-digit runs, and then before you know it, they lose the game 21-0. Okay. Yeah. And I want to just give the biggest, huge salute to the Colorado Rockies fan. Do you know what the attendance was when they lost 21-0?
Mm-mm.
38,423.
Wow.
38,000
Sold
showed
out.
up to Coors Field. I don't care, as I said yesterday, I don't care if it was free trip to Hawaii night. The fact of the matter is that 38,000 people at least bought tickets and coming after a 21-0 loss and an 8-game losing streak. Do you know what the attendance was? 34,000. Rockies fans.
Show up.
First of all, gotta respect that.
Yeah,
And Rockies management put a team on the field.
Yeah, and it might be maybe brighter days for the Rockies in the near future. I'm sure Paul Holden's got a fire episode coming out with the Bud Black firing, but I think it's a good day for Rockies fans. I think Bud Black, I don't know how he's been a manager for 20 years, but again, as I always tell people, he has one of the craziest managerial resumes. He only has 2 90-win seasons in his 20 years. He's only made the postseason twice.
I didn't know they fired him.
Yes, Bud Black.
I just saw that now.
Gone. Yep. That's why I keep bringing it up. I'm like, Paul Holden's going to have a good episode today because Bud Black is gone, guys. It is a new day for the Colorado Rockies.
You know what? I didn't know that. You watched me figure that out. Holy cow.
Clip it.
There you go. I may have to drop this episode and then drop another one later. Mm-hmm. Look at that. You got to see what your pal Sully looks like when he discovers that a manager just got fired. I had no idea that Bud Black got fired until you and I were talking about this just now. Well, for those of you who think I don't do enough research before the show, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right.
You're locked in on D-back stuff, Sully. You weren't worried.
There you go. All right, cool. Well, hey, wow, there you go. Hey, let's do the trivia question. Let's do the trivia question for today. And it's Diamondbacks related.
Ooh.
What pitcher won the first ever Arizona Diamondbacks postseason game? Got the first ever. Let me rephrase that. Who got the first ever postseason victory as a pitcher for the Arizona Diamondbacks? Because the Diamondbacks did lose their first ever postseason game, but they won a game in that series. What pitcher got the first ever Arizona Diamondbacks postseason win? Put the answer right down there, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when I post the bonus episode where I break down the firing of Bud Black. That will come out sometime late on Monday. I'm Millard Thomas. Where can people follow your great show?
Yeah, streaming on all platforms, Locked on Diamondbacks on YouTube as well. Please hit subscribe. And please follow me on social media at CreatorThomas24 for the personal account on Twitter, or look up Locked on Diamondbacks, both Twitter and Instagram, for the podcast handle.
And you can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever they're calling it these days, on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, and follow us right here on YouTube. Talking about the Diamondbacks, a confusing NL West, and I got to discover a manager got fired. This has been a Locked On MLB, Locked On Diamondbacks podcast crossover. He's Millard Thomas. I'm your pal Sully. Let's fist pump for old time's sake.